today we're going to have a class that has to do with summary and then some question answer. If there are any doubts regarding the lesson till this point, so one may ask questions regarding to that. Today we'll just have a lesson which will be focused on summary, on doing a bit of summary of the entire course that we had on the Dharma vocabulary and the text, which is the Heart Sutra. So before we begin, so today we have 2 more verses, and with this we have most wonderfully completed with the 8 near sons. So these are the last of the 8 near sons. We started with Arya Avalokiteshvara, Arya Manjushri, then after which Arya Vajrapani and Arya Maitreya. Then last class we did Arya Shriti Garbha and Arya Akasha Garbha. And so in today's class we have the Arya Samantapatra and in Tibetan we call it Timakunte. Let me check the name again. So because there's some variation of this name. Therefore, Sarva Nirvana Viskambi. So with that, we will be done with the 8 near sons of Buddha. So let us begin our lesson. And the summary will be quite brief. We're just going to touch the important details regarding the text that we covered, mostly on the basis of the terminology and the grammatical structuring. Okay, so we begin our class today by this line of devotion, that is to the Mother Pragya Paramita. So in the first line, which is Yum Chamo Sherab Giparu to Chimba La Chatsel. Yum Chambo Sherab Giparu to Chimba La Chatsel. So this means I prostrate to the Great Mother Pragya Paramita. And then this verse, Jambe Pava Kundu Sam, Chuma Kunte, Kundu Hesitro, Yeshi Kempa, Ntumasangecho, Pava Kundu Sambur Chatsalo. So this verse is a verse dedicated to the Bhadra. So this verse means, the meaning of this verse is the glorious and the venerated hero, O Arya Samantapatra, one who is cleansed of all the stains and the wisdom light that shines upon all direction. The one who is the very embodiment of Yishikemba, Dhamma Sangecho, one who is the embodiment of wisdom, the primordial Buddha. I prostrate to you, O Arya Samantapatra. And then this is a verse dedicated to Sarva Nirvana. So Timakunte Vesamuni Deshe Nesun Depe Chomdende Drova Kunki Let Kunsewa Pawa Timanamse Chatselo. So it means Timakunte, which is similar to this line. It's quite similar. Tip actually means it means stain, or it also means shadow. So the one who dispels, who is free from all the shadow and darkness of ignorance, and the one who is the very light, the very embodiment of the light of wisdom, the one who has already gone beyond, who has already passed beyond to the realm of of blissfulness, of the great blissfulness, the Bhagavati or Bhagavad, the one who dispels the self-grasping ignorance of all the sentient beings. I prostrate to you, O Sarva Nirvana Viskambin, or Arya Sarva Nirvana Viskambin. So with this, we have dedicated and taken refuge in the last of the two near sons of Buddha, one of the two of the 8 great bodhisattvas. And so we begin our lesson with the great wisdom or great knowledge mantra, which is the mantra or the knowledge of the transcendent wisdom. So, Tayatha Om Kate Kate Parakate Parasam Kate Bodhiswaha. And with this, we begin our lesson today, which is the summary of the 7 classes that we had regarding the Heart Sutra, and of the first session and the first class of the Dharma vocabulary course. Okay, so the first is stating the name of the sutra, Shiramimbo. So this is the name of the sutra, and like we already discussed, it is a tradition that has very much flourished in Tibet from the Nalanda tradition, that whenever one states or writes or publishes any treatise or sutra, they will have the name written in Indian. So the translation, this is something that is a tradition that has been passed down from the late 7th century, in which during the translation, after the first one will state the name of the original sutra in the language of the root text, which here is the Kyagarke, which means the Sanskrit at that time, and then afterwards the language in which they translated. And so here we see the first 2 lines is the name of the text, Kyagaketu, which means in Indian language, Bhagavati. So we already discussed that the term Bhagavati is the feminine word for the term Bhagavat, which means the omniscient one, Bhagavati, because we are referring to the great mother Pragya Paramita. So therefore the feminine term is used here. Pragyan, which means wisdom. Paramita, which means the transcendental or transcendent, or wisdom of going beyond, or wisdom of transcending. So Pragyan Paramita, which means Paramita means beyond here, or that which is beyond. This we have talked during the first class, where we talked about 2 etymologies, one being Paramita, other being Paramita. So both have, when we say Param, more or less beyond, it talks about a state which is which is beyond or transcendental. Whereas which is transcendental, when we talk about Param, when we talk about Param, we're talking about perfections. Whereas when we talk about Para, it talks about transcendental. Beyond this or that which is beyond. So Para, when we use the etymology as Para, and then Mita. But if we take the etymology as Param Ita, it has the understanding. So therefore, both of these translations are valid, and the translation as the of the paramita parutuchimpa as perfection is one which is widely used in the Tibetan translation and interpretation. Tibetan interpretation of this translation. So paramita, Hridaya, which means the heart or the essence. So in Tibetan, the name of the text, Chomden Dema, which is Bhagwati, Pragyan, which is Shira, and Paramita, which is Parutuchimba, as perfection, the sixth perfection, Parchi, as sixth perfection. And Hridaya, which is Hriday or Hridaya here, which means Ningbo, or the heart. And Pambochiko means just one volume. So this is a single volume. So here, this is the first portion of the text, which is stating the name of the sutra. So here, only the name of the sutra is being stated. Then the second portion, which is the introduction. So we're merely introducing the setting, meaning that normally when most of the sutra, all of the sutra, when they were written in those days, it always starts with, this is what I heard once, or this is what I have heard once, or this is what I heard once, meaning that most of them who are writing it down are mostly the arhats, and even from arhats, most of them at that time were the sharvakas. So they used to listen to the teaching, and then because of their ability of the single pointed meditation, the samadhi, the power of their samadhi, they would retain all the knowledge, and then they would at that time they would either write it on the leaf, or sometimes also would write them on the stone. So in that way, it was written. So since most of them were Sharvakas, and the very principal understanding of the Arhat Sharvakas are those who listen to the teaching of Buddha, and then they similarly expound them to others as they have taken the teaching from the Buddha. So they do that by writing. So here we say that the first line is that this is what I have heard once. So this is something that can be found in all of the translation of the sutra. Chomdende here, referring to the Buddha Shakyamuni, not the Mother Pragya Paramita, but Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha Shakyamuni, the Bhagavad Gebel, which is the, so here there are three important things that one may understand. Three important things. First would be the principal disciples, or the target audience of this particular teaching, the essence of the particular teaching, and the place where the teaching was held. So here we see that the place where the teaching was held, the auspicious place where the teaching was held, was at the Rajgriha on the Kirtakuta Parvata, which means the Vulture's Peak, Chagyapungpuri. So at the king's palace on the Vulture's Peak, that was the auspicious place where the teaching was given. And the targeted audience of this particular teaching, starting with Ayushmat Shariputra, were the bhikshus of the Mahasangha and the bodhisattvas of the Mahasangha. So we discussed that Mahasangha refers to that the philosophical sangha or philosophical school during the time that was established during the time of Buddha, Mahasangha. So the bhikshus of Mahasangha and the bodhisattvas of Mahasangha, along with Ayushmat Shariputra, were the targeted audience for this teaching. And what is the principle? What is the core teaching? The teaching is of the second turning of the wheel of dharma. The turning of wheel dharma, that is the wheel of non-characterization. So the second turning of wheel, and the essential teaching is of the great knowledge of the transcendent wisdom through the deep contemplation or meditative absorption on the different aspects of phenomena and self being empty of intrinsic nature. The deep and profound analysis, which is done with the help of the which is done with the great help of the meditative absorption, that is of the samadhi. And in that meditative absorption, to analytically cut through the ignorance to understand the profound teaching of the transcendental wisdom. So this is the main teaching of which was given at that time. So in this introduction, we have three important things that we understood. First, we understood the place where the teaching was given. It is at the king's palace, at the Vulture's Peak. The targeted audience or disciples, starting from Ayushmat Shariputra, the bhikshus and bodhisattvas of the Mahasangha, and the teaching of the second turning of wheel is the profound understanding, of the profound transcendental wisdom, the profound understanding of the transcendental wisdom by deep meditative absorption on the different aspect of phenomena and self being empty of intrinsic nature. So that is the essential teaching. So these are the three information that can be understood from here. So Bhagavata, which is the Buddha, Gebyoka, the king's palace, Chagyapungpuri, the Vulture's Peak, and at that particular place. And we understand this by the usage of this particle, which is the particle here of the seventh grammatical case, the position. And in the seventh grammatical case, it is the usage case of indicating position. So at the Vulture's Peak, to the bhikshus, so Gelong bhikshus, Gendu Chenpo Mahasangha, the philosophical school during the time of Buddha, the great Sangha of Bhikshus and the great Sangha, the Bhikshus of the great Sangha and the Bodhisattva of the great Sangha, and residing at the Vulture's Peak with them, and at that very moment, Ayushmat Shariputra. So we hear that here we understand that one of the principal or the targeted audience is the Shariputra. And at that time, so in introduction, we see that at that time, from this very understanding, that is, at that time, which means at that time, the Bhagavata was residing in the meditative absorption, in the deep samadhi, on the different aspect of phenomena and self being empty of intrinsic nature. So this is the core teaching. So during that meditative absorption, so one understanding, so this is one of the understanding, is that during that meditative absorption, from the profound emptiness manifested the Avalokiteshvara, which with Shariputra reveal the methods. So in a way, to not think Arya Avalokiteshvara to be different from the Buddha, but a part of Buddha's existence that aroused from his deep contemplation on emptiness. Okay, so anyways, here we understand that the core teaching is of the methods of thoroughly cutting through the ignorance and finding the method to deeply to reside in a deep meditative absorption in analyzing different aspects of phenomena and self being empty of intrinsic existence. And yang that's it. Chanju sempa chum power cheris won't you? Ye won't you shiru ki paru to chimpa some Nila number Tashipumunga Puteta Ranshin Tomba number. Tao. Okay, so this also tells us the method of how one should approach the essential training. And this is done here. It's stated that, and during that time, and at that very moment, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara was contemplating, was doing a deep contemplation on the profound transcendental wisdom and applying it to see or to view the five aggregates being empty of intrinsic nature. So to view it as empty of intrinsic nature. So till here we have the introduction. So till this point we have the introduction. Now we know where this teaching was given, to whom the teaching was given, what was the core understanding or core teaching, or what was the main, core understanding or core deliverance of this teaching. Now going into the particular teaching. So in that instance, it was a dialogue between Ayushmat Shariputra and Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. And in this deep and profound, we find that in this dialogue, it starts with a question-answer session, a question that was posed by the Ayushmat Shariputra. So then Asange to Meaning, at that time, the Ayushmat Shariputra, which was residing there with the Buddha, he started asking the question. And so we see the action of asking is done by this particle. This is the particle of the third grammatical case. Here, the subject case, the subject is Ayushmat Shariputra, Siddhartha Sharipu is the subject. The particle of third grammatical case here being sa. And then the one to whom, so the action is to ask question, and the one to whom the question was asked is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara, and the action is to speak or to ask. So it's stated that then the Ayushmat Shariputra residing near the Buddha in this way asked Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. So he asked the question in this manner. So Rikipu, which is the son with the noble merits. So we already discussed that when we talk about the noble merits, where the very very deciding factor is someone that has already achieved the path of seeing, those who have already come, those who have already passed the path of, who have already transcended the path of aspiration, which is the path of accumulation and path of preparation. So one who has already transcended upon these two paths and have achieved the path of seeing, meaning those who are capable in their meditative absorption to directly view the emptiness, are known as the son with the noble merits. So merits come from an action or an achievement. So this is the achievement that they have done. They have practiced, they have analyzed deeply to the point that they have achieved the path of seeing. And so that is their merit. So the noble son, the son with the noble merits, Kanglala means whosoever. Kanglala means whosoever. So this particular verse is dialogue between Arya Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra, in which Arya Avalokiteshvara describes the method of deeply contemplating on the five aggregates being empty of intrinsic nature. So when we talk about empty of nature, we mean empty of intrinsic nature. That the very nature is also dependently arising, that it is not independent, not a unity, not a unit by itself, not independent, not one. So one entity, so it's dependent and dependently arising. So in this particular portion, the discussion between the dialogue between Arya Avalokiteshvara and Ayushmat Shariputra, contemplating on five aggregates being empty of intrinsic nature, we see that the question was posed by Ayushmat Shariputra, in which he says, "O son with the noble merits, those whosoever," so how should one practice the application of the profound wisdom, the profound transcendental wisdom? How should one practice the application of the deep and profound transcendental wisdom? Meaning that how should one understand this profound and transcendental wisdom, and how should one apply this and into their practice? So Dikeje Mepatang, as Ayushmat Shariputra said that, and Sharisamba Sambachambo Pawache Semunchuki Sidatemba Sharip Tuatepula Dikeje Meso. So as Shariputra Ayushmat Shariputra has asked or posed this question. Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara spoke in this manner. And so Avalokiteshvara said, Shariputra, Sharipu, Rikipomo, the son or the daughter with noble merits, whosoever, whosoever wish or desire to apply the profound teaching of the transcendental wisdom, those son and daughters with noble merits who aspire or who desire to understand and then practice and apply the teachings of the transcendental wisdom is as such. Should view it in this manner. So should view things in this manner, or should have a view in this manner. So they should view even the five aggregates being empty of intrinsic nature. So we have already discussed this particular case in which we see that the usage of here we have the usage of the inclusive case here. And the usage of the inclusive particle here is done for two meaning, which is the interpretation, two interpretation. The first interpretation being that during the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, that is the Four Noble Truth, the wheel of the Four Noble Truth, Buddha expounded the teaching to the targeted disciple of the five excellent students, to which Buddha stated that the characteristic bearer of the self is the five aggregates. So therefore, in this wheel of Dharma, the turning of wheel of Dharma, that is of the non-characterization, it is stated that even these, which were formerly stated as the characteristic bearer of the self, are empty of intrinsic nature. Even they don't exist independently. This is one understanding of the inclusive particle. The other understanding of the inclusive particle is to be understood as understood as the no self of to see the emptiness of intrinsic nature of self and the phenomena. Self in a way that these five particles are empty of intrinsic nature, or saying that self, which is characterized by these five aggregates, are empty of intrinsic nature, which does as a consequence, establishes the non-intrinsic or the emptiness or empty of intrinsic nature of self. And then even these aggregates, each of these aggregates, which are also compound phenomena, are empty of intrinsic nature, thus establishing the emptiness of intrinsic nature of phenomena. Empty of intrinsic nature of phenomena. So therefore, inclusive case could be understood in this two manner. So till this point, we understand the method of contemplating on five aggregates being empty of intrinsic nature. This is the third classification of the Heart Sutra, and the fourth one being dialogue between Arya Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra in the context of the fourfold emptiness. And this starts with the 4 lines, which are the lines understood as the fourfold emptiness, in which it starts with so tomba tomba ni so so in which these first of these first two line of this verse of the fourfold emptiness, in which we see the usage case of the first grammatical case. So this particle is known as the recompound particle, but in this case, we see that it is used with name. Name meaning a word or term that represents a phenomena. Here it represents the emptiness. Here it represents the form, both of which are phenomena. So since these are phenomena, these can be represented by terms or words, and those particular terms and words are known as naming word. And since these recompound particle, this and this, are used with the naming word, it can be understood as having a particularly wonderful influence over the entire sentence, in a way that it states that the first phenomena is of the nature of the second, and so we understand that in first verse it states that the form, which is the first of the five aggregates, is of the nature of emptiness, which is empty of intrinsic nature. Doesn't mean that it is non-existent as in the nature as being nihilist, or so. Therefore, it is of the nature of emptiness, which should be understood as empty of intrinsic nature. Similarly, the very nature of all phenomena, that is emptiness, is also of the nature of form. But here, when we talk about the nature of form, we must understand that here we are trying to understand emptiness to be in the nature of dependently originating. That emptiness itself is not independent phenomena. It is too dependently arising. And so here we see the two truth being represented in either way. So emptiness being the ultimate truth, and the form being the conventional reality or conventional truth. But like we already discussed, that we have already provided few verses for this. One of the most important verse is from the Mula Madhyamika Karika, in which the verse states that without depending on the conventional reality, ultimate reality cannot be understood. Without comprehending or understanding the ultimate reality, the liberation or nirvana is not possible. And the verse before that, which states that all of the teaching of the Buddha is taught in the context of the two truth. The conventional truth of worldly understanding, and the ultimate truth of the emptiness. So therefore, because through this two verse, we understand the first two lines of the fourfold emptiness, in which it states that the form is of the nature of emptiness, and emptiness is of the nature of form. And then the second two lines of this verse, which states that here we have the same recompound particle, but this in no way is used as the first grammatical case, but it is used as the recompound particle, meaning that here it's merely stating the end of a narration and nothing more. So here it says that the emptiness is not other than the form, and form is not other than emptiness, meaning that if you go and find the form which is other than the very nature of the form, and form being other than the very nature, meaning the emptiness of form and the form is not other. And similarly, emptiness and the emptiness of the form and the form are not other. So therefore, we must, since both of these are of the same nature, they cannot be other. So therefore, these are not other than self, meaning that you cannot find emptiness of form, which is void of the form itself. If the form itself is non-existent, the emptiness of that form is also non-existent. So similarly, it should be understood in here. This particular understanding also comes from the verse of the Mula Madhyamika Karika. It states that the non-aggregate is not other than the aggregate. It is not, you cannot find the non-aggregate in the aggregate, and you cannot find the aggregate in the non-aggregate. And the Tathagat is not with a absolutely existing aggregate. Then what is the Tathagata? So this is a very raw translation of that particular verse in Tibetan. It's so this particular verse tells us the very understanding of emptiness of a phenomena being of the same nature to that phenomena, and that if that very phenomena cease to exist, the emptiness of that phenomena also cease to exist, that there is no emptiness of phenomena which is independent of that phenomena. Similarly, the emptiness of form is not other than the form, and form is not other than the emptiness of the form. So in this particular context, we understand the fourfold emptiness. And then these, till this point, which states similarly, the other four aggregates, which is the feeling, the perception, dushe, the compounding factor, and nambashipa, the consciousness, are also empty of intrinsic nature and can be analyzed through the analysis of the fourfold emptiness. And so, Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are empty of all phenomena are emptiness, meaning it's of the nature of emptiness. And so, since it is empty of intrinsic nature, it's the nature of all phenomena is of the nature of emptiness, its characteristic is not intrinsically existing. So it is empty of intrinsic characteristic. It is empty of intrinsic arising. It is empty of intrinsic ceasing, meaning that it arises without any cause. It ceases without any cause, that it is not dependent on cause, on any other factor to arise and to cease. And to be pure of stain is also, the stains are also, the stains, meaning the two stains, stains of the afflicted mind, stains due to the impression of the afflicted mind. So both of these stains are also not independently existing. If that was the case, there was no possibility that those stains could be purified by certain cause and factor. And then being free of these stains is also dependently arising. And then to be full, to be filled, or to be empty is also intrinsically existing. So all of these can be analyzed through the fourfold emptiness by replacing the term Sukh, which is rupa, with soa, feeling, dushe, perception, duche, compounding factor, number shepa, consciousness, characteristic. So we don't have to say tsenyi mepa, we can directly say tsenyi tomba, tomba ni tsenyi so. And then similarly, keba, ma keba, tomba, tomba ni ma keba. Similarly like this. So through the same process of analysis, one can establish the same understanding. And so now the next portion is dialogue between Arya Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra on 18 constituent, 12 link dependent origination, exhaustion of it, which refers to 12 dependent origination, and the Four Noble Truth being empty of nature. And then also the wisdom and attainment and non-attainment of the wisdom is also empty of intrinsic nature. So this starts from this particular line, Sharipu Teta Tomba Nila Sume. So it starts from the 5 aggregates. Sume, Tsuame, Dusheme, Duchen, Nambashame. So the 5 aggregates are empty of intrinsic nature. And similarly, now from here, the 5 physical senses and 1 mental sense, Migme, no eyes, eye being empty of intrinsic nature, the Nawa, ear being empty of intrinsic nature, nose being empty of intrinsic nature, Che, which is the tongue being empty of intrinsic nature, Lu, the body being empty of intrinsic nature, and then the mind being empty of intrinsic nature. That means that arising and cessation of all of these is also dependently arising. They are dependently arising, all the 5 physical senses and 1 mental senses. And then finally, they cease depending on cause and factors. And then the object of these senses, first, the form, which is the object of the eye consciousness, sound, which is the object of the ear consciousness, smell, which is the object of the nose consciousness, taste, which is the object of the tongue consciousness, touch, which is the riksha, touch, which is the object of the body consciousness, and then finally the phenomena, which is the object of the mind. And so therefore even these objects, which is the first of the 18 constituent, are empty of intrinsic nature. Then from the constituent of I to the constituent of the mind, the 6 constituent are also empty of intrinsic nature. Then the constituent of the consciousness of I to the constituent of the consciousness of the mind are also empty of intrinsic nature. And this is particularly shown, this is shown by the inclusive particle. Here, the inclusive particle being ne, and here the inclusive particle being partu, young. So this is more like a phrase rather than the inclusive particle, the particle being young, but then it has to be understood here as this particular phrase rather than the particle itself. So this shows the inclusiveness. So when we say meaning from the I constituent to the mind constituent, and this is understood by the usage of this particular inclusive particle. Here, partuyang meto, in which we just have to state the last of the inclusive meaning, which is here the consciousness of the mind. So the constituent of consciousness of mind till the consciousness of the constituent of mind, meaning that those which comes before that, which begins from the constituent of the consciousness of I. So till this point, all the 18 constituent are also empty of intrinsic nature. So we see this negation. This is non-affirming negation. So there is nothing affirmed by negating it. So, for example, for the affirming negation, if we say that there is a chair and a table in a room, and if we say that it is not a chair, we understand that it's a table, and that's the affirming negation. Now, if we just say that if we don't have any context like this, we just similarly say that this is not a house. It just negates the existence of house as whatever is being observed currently. So these are non-affirming negation. Similarly, all of those contradictions are also non-affirming negation. Contradiction of contact is the non-contact, and so non-contact is just the negation of contact. There is nothing affirmed there. So therefore we see the intrinsic nature, empty of intrinsic nature. When we talk about empty of intrinsic nature, it's always non-affirming negation. It's just the cessation of the conventional reality and nothing else. So therefore, these are non-affirming negation here. These are negative particle, but they come in the context of grammar. There's a negative particle. In context of negation, this is non-affirming negation here. So all the 18 constituents are also empty of intrinsic nature. And from here, we begin the 12-link dependent origination. So marikpa, which is ignorance, and then the connecting karma, then the consciousness, then the name and the body, and so on. We have the 12-link dependent origination from the ignorance to the exhaustion of ignorance, from death and aging to the exhaustion or cessation of the death and aging, the 12-link dependent origination, and the exhaustion of the 12-link dependent origination is also empty of intrinsic nature. Finally, the Four Noble Truths. First being the noble truth of the suffering, dukkha, noble truth of dukkha. Second, the noble truth of origin of dukkha, the noble truth of cessation of dukkha, and then the path towards the noble truth of path towards cessation of dukkha. So I'm using the word dukkha instead of directly translating it as suffering, because we already discussed that when we say dukkha, it has a more pervasive meaning. It is more pervasive. It depicts more depth to the very word. Normally, when we say suffering, the concept like impermanence, ignorance, all-pervasive suffering is not very well depicted. It's only the suffering of suffering that comes to our mind. So like that, even the so here we see that the teaching during the first turning of wheel, which is of the Four Noble Truths, are also, and each of these Four Noble Truths, that is first the suffering. Suffering itself is empty of intrinsic nature, meaning that it arises depending either on cause, components, or it arises on imputation. So therefore, since it arises dependently, so dependently it also ceases. That means that suffering is not permanent phenomena. It is something that changes, that ceases, that arises and ceases. Similarly, and the three types of suffering, the three types of dukkha, the dukkha of change, or impermanence, and all pervasive dukkha. All these three are empty of intrinsic nature, and the very origin of all these dukkha, which is the self-grasping ignorance, which can be understood, because in the 12th link dependent origination, the first thing that is required is the ignorance. And here we talk about the ignorance, which is self-grasping ignorance of me, of I and my, mine, of I and mine. In Tibetan, we call it ngai chikta. So there are two type of self-grasping ignorance. We call it chikta, ngai chikta, and ngai ve chikta. I, ignorance of self-grasping as I, and self-grasping ignorance of my. So first, having created the strong, independently existing I, and then starting to have cravings and attachment towards things which one considers to be my, belonging to I. So these things are the sources of all suffering. And then also self-centered attitude from the Bodhisattva Charya Avatara, the verse which says that all of the suffering of the samsara arises from self-centered attitude, meaning thinking that I should win and others should lose. And all the happiness and blissfulness of the samsara, all the world, all the happiness and the blissfulness arises from having the thought to the altruistic, benevolent, altruistic thought. So, all the suffering of the samsara arises from self-centered attitude. All the blissfulness and happiness of that one may experience arises from benefiting others, from altruistic mind. So therefore we see that by this very verse, we see that self-centered attitude, which comes from the ignorance of self-grasping. So therefore, ignorance of self-grasping is the source of all the suffering, all the dukkha. Then similarly, the first verse from the Praise to Dependent Origination by Lama Tsongkhapa, in which he states that those who are born in samsara, in the pathetic state, miserable state, the one that is responsible for it is the ignorance. And so ignorance is the source of all suffering. And then to counter that, to prove that with a counter from the logic, the logic by proving it, by proving the counter of the statement, is that in the Mula Madhyamika Karika, it is stated that liberation is attained when there is cessation of the connecting karma and the affliction. And these affliction arises from the mind and ignorance. And by freeing the knot, by freeing the knot, which is the knot of the self-grasping ignorance, one is free. And so all of these affliction and connecting karma and the ignorance cease in emptiness. So we see that through this verse, we see the meaning of the source of all the dukkha. And also the source of dukkha, which is self-grasping ignorance, is also empty of intrinsic nature. And so by negating, by ceasing these ignorance, there is the non-affirming negation, which is the state where these suffering are ceased, these dukkha are ceased, the state of blissfulness, which is resulted by the cessation of dukkha. There is a state such as this, which is the state of the complete Buddha. And then there is the path. We talked about the 5 path, the 5 path and the 14 grounds, which are the path towards attaining, and the 8-fold paths towards attaining the cessation of dukkha. And that path is also empty of intrinsic nature, meaning that just because that path is there, doesn't mean that someone, just by acknowledging the path, saying that, oh, there is this path, one will not be able to achieve the path. They have to work for it. That the path itself is also empty of intrinsic nature. Then similarly, the transcendent wisdom is also empty of intrinsic nature. And attainment and non-attainment of this transcendent wisdom is also empty of intrinsic nature. So this is this portion. Now, the second last portion is dialogue between Arya Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra, Pragyaparamita mantra, in which the first portion can be used as a logical reasoning to why this knowledge is a great knowledge, a transcendental knowledge. Why is it a perfect knowledge? Why is it an unsurpassable, unequal knowledge? Why is it a knowledge that makes one unsurpassable and unequal? And why this knowledge is not a lie, but a truth? And so the logical reasoning behind this, the reasoning comes from this first part of this. And so this first part could be taken as the reasoning why this knowledge is a great knowledge, transcendental, perfect, is the highest, unsurpassable, one that makes one unsurpassable. It is the knowledge that dispels all the suffering. It is not a lie, but a truth. And so the reasoning starts from this line. So Sharipu, which is Shariputra, Tetavena, like this, Chanju Simba Nam Thoba Me Pechir, because the bodhisattvas who have not attained the wisdom, this transcendental wisdom, meaning those who are in the ground of aspiration, the aspirant ground, having faith on this transcendental wisdom, they too, having faith on this transcendental wisdom, what happens is that their mind, all the ignorance and the stains from their mind, all the fear and doubt in their mind becomes clear. There is no longer fear and no longer doubt in their mind, no longer doubt and fear in their mind. And this doubt and fear is being countered by this transcendent wisdom, having faith in that transcendent wisdom. Because by having faith in this transcendent wisdom, so faith should be understood in a way that it is through deep analysis, not as a faith by just saying that I believe in this. No, faith as practicing the methods that was already stated above by our Arya Avalokiteshvara, starting from contemplating on aggregates, 5 aggregates being empty of intrinsic existence, then the 4-fold emptiness, and then the 18 constituent, 12 link dependent origination, exhaustion of 12 link dependent origination, 4 noble truth, wisdom, and attainment and non-attainment of wisdom to be empty of intrinsic nature. In that method of contemplation, to have faith. This is how you have faith in the transcendent wisdom, not by just folding hands and saying, I have faith, but faith by practicing it every time, every day, every moment. So by having faith and reliance on this transcendent wisdom, the bodhisattva of the aspirant ground to become fearless and doubtless and without stains. And then they surpass all the wrong views. They shatter all the wrong views. They are past all the wrong views, all the very wrong views. They are very much past these wrong views. And then so they attain the state where they are beyond suffering, meaning they have passed to the state where they are beyond suffering, no more suffering. Sorry, no more dukkha. And then they attain the state of nirvana. So this is one reasoning why this is a great knowledge mantra, great knowledge, this is a great knowledge. This is transcendental knowledge. This is unsurpassable knowledge. This is highest knowledge. This is the knowledge that makes someone unsurpassable. This is the knowledge which dispels all the suffering, because here it is stated that nyangen, which means to be at the state which is beyond suffering. So there's no longer any suffering. So complete this dispelling of suffering by this logic. And so we understand this is the first reasoning why it is such. And then the second reasoning is that those omniscient Buddha of 3 times, even they, having faith and reliance on the transcendent wisdom, attain the unsurpassable, the highest state of complete manifestation of the Buddha, the victorious one, the unsurpassable one, the omniscient one, the all-knowing mind, the transcendental wisdom. So they attain that state by reliance. Even the Buddha of 3 times, omniscient Buddha of 3 times, omnipotent Buddha of 3 times, omniscient, all-knowing. They are, by reliance on the transcendental wisdom, they too attain that unsurpassable state of complete manifestation as a Buddha. The most excellent, the most venerated. And so we see that because of these 2 reasoning, one, the reasoning that those Buddha, those bodhisattva who are in the ground of aspirant, by having firm reliance on and firm conviction, firm reliance and firm faith on the transcendental wisdom, they too attain the state of going of beyond suffering, beyond dukkha. They become doubtless, they become fearless. They shatter all the wrong views by having firm reliance and faith on the transcendental wisdom. This is the first logic. The second logic is by even the Buddha of the 3 times, those omniscient Buddha of the 3 times, even they, by firm reliance on this transcendental wisdom, attain the unsurpassable, the excellent, complete manifestation of Buddha. And so with these 2 reasoning, we state that Tedavena, and so because of this, and like this, the knowledge of the transcendental wisdom, the knowledge of the great knowledge wisdom, the great knowledge, actually translated as mantra, so knowledge of the mind, and Lana Mebanga, the mantra, the unsurpassable mantra, Minyamba, the unequal mantra, the mantra, uncomparable mantra, the mantra that makes someone uncomparable, unsurpassable. Tunga Tamjirab to Shiva Chebanga, the mantra that that pacifies all the dukkha. Minzum pe. Now this is reasoning. Because it is not a lie. Minzum means not a lie. Because it is not a lie, and this is the reasoning. Because of this, this is the inferential usage case of the third grammatical case, the particle of third grammatical case, the reasoning case. It gives reasoning. It says because it is not lie. Now, because of all these reasoning, those two reasoning, we understand that this is not a lie, and since this is not a lie, it is a truth. Temper shepherd chate, understanding that this is the truth. Uttering or stating the mantra of transcendental wisdom, Pragya Paramita mantra. And it goes, Tayatha Tatyatha, in this manner, Kate Kate, so one should, so this means go beyond, to go. Paragate, gone beyond, parasam beyond. Bodhiswaha, Bodhi, meaning the state of the Buddha. And Swaha, as we already discussed, it means establishing the. So this is one translation in Tibetan, Tsawatsupa, which means establishing the foundation. So of the Buddhi in this way. Other meaning is Swaha is a ritualistic. It's a ritualistic thing which is done during the fire offering puja. Swaha, who is the noble consort of the Deva of fire, the fire god. So while offering to the fire, Swaha is always done during the fire offering. We call it yagya in Hindi. So fire offering, puja, is always the uttering of Swaha at the end. So Kate, the first Kate, which refers to the first part of the aspirant ground, which is the path of accumulation. Second Gate, the second ground, the second part, which is of the aspirant ground, that is the ground of preparation. Both of these are ground of aspirants. Paragate, which refers to the first, the path of seeing and the path of meditation, including the 10 grounds, starting from the extremely joyous to the cloud of dharma, the 10th ground of bodhisattva. Parasamgate bodhiswaha, referring to the 3 grounds of the Buddha, the unequal ground, the primordial wisdom ground, and then finally the universal light ground. So in that way, we understand this great knowledge. Okay, then the final portion of the sutra, which is Buddha rising from deep meditative absorption. So Buddha approves this wonderful turning of wheel of dharma. So it starts with Shariputra. So practice it as the Bodhisattva Mahasattva has stated. And then as Buddha arises from the deep samadhi, as Buddha arises from this deep meditative absorption, the samadhi, Buddha says, by in an approving gesture, Buddha says, well done. And then Buddha says, well done, well done. The son with the noble merits, in this manner, and so according, this should be how it this in this very manner, the way how you have shown the deep and profound application of the transcendent wisdom. Similarly, all of the Buddhas, the Tathagats, also have great admiration for this. And saying it, after saying it in this manner, the Shariputra, the Ayushmat Shariputra, Bodhisattva Mahasattva Aryavalokiteshvara, and the Sangha, the Sangha of Bhikshu of the great Sangha and the Bodhisattva of the great Sangha present there, the Devas, the gods, the Asura, the Manushya, the human, and the Asura, the demigods, and then the scent eater, all of them in a very joyous, in the most joyous, in the most grateful and joyous sound, they praised what was said by the Buddha. And so after shouting the praise, and the Devas with the praise, they also shower the rain of flowers and all. And so finally praising with great praise and reverence to what the Buddha have said. Also the Pragyaparamita Hridaya Sutra is ended most wonderfully. Iti Pragyaparamita Sutra Samaptam, most wonderfully and most auspiciously it has completed. Okay, so this is the summary of what we have been studying for the past 7 classes. So before I read the final, so today the dedication is done to the Pragyaparamita, Great Mother Pragyaparamita. Before I read this, so if anyone has questions, I will take questions now. Any questions regarding the grammatical structuring or the things that I have said in today's summary. So if anyone has questions, please ask away. And all of the terms are already provided with the material of each class. So please view the terms there. When it comes to enriching a vocabulary, it is entirely dependent on every one of you. You have to enrich it by yourself. I can only introduce them. The rest is up to every one of you. So there, I cannot do anything. And those who are making sentences with those words, they can send the sentence to me. I can correct them. Okay, so do we have anyone who have questions regarding today's lesson? If there is no one, then Nirmala would like to ask a question. Okay, please ask away.
Kukan-san,
Sir?
your course naming vocabulary of this sutra, and it's completely satisfy what I want to hear. But I have a question about the sutra itself, not about grammatical structure and so on.
Okay.
Sorry if my question is not right, but you are practicing monk, and who else can take this question? First, I'm trying to shortly say how I understand the essence of what was saying, and after that, question. As I get it, the intrinsic nature of all phenomena is empty, means that that we are all exist in the kind of agreement, in the kind of accordance, in the kind of how to say contract between us. That this is the table, this is the dog, and so on. We name all phenomena with some names in this agreement. But if we sitting in very deep and profound
Yes.
analyzing, we can see that it's not true. It's just agreement. Okay, I can accept it, but if I'm going to the park and I see aggressive dog that run intending to snap me, I will not say, "Oh dear dog, old karma empty, don't snap me."
Okay.
I will run out or defend myself in any other way.
Definitely.
So does it mean that the wisdom in this sutra is not universal? I cannot apply it in everyday life by the others.
Okay, so I will try to answer this. Very wonderful questions. This is the very core idea of what the profound wisdom is. So I will answer this question through the perspective of Prasangik Madhyamika, the philosophy school that I agree with. So when we say that all phenomena are empty of intrinsic nature, so that very statement tells us that every phenomena that we conventionally understand to exist. So when we understand it in the conventional sense, what happens is that we see things and then we name things. But the thing is that there is somewhat a sense of grasping, a sense of permanence. This is true, very true in our day-to-day life. That is, sometimes when you have some sort of work to do, we postpone it to tomorrow. And this comes from our understanding that tomorrow is going to be, that we don't consider ourselves to be that impermanent in a sense. So in a way that we will not live tomorrow. We definitely think that we're going to live tomorrow and we'll postpone it for tomorrow. And similarly, the example with the dog, when we say everything is empty of intrinsic nature, we don't say that. So according to the Prasangik Madhyamika, we have something called everything is existing, arising on the mere basis of imputation by name. And in this particular way, what happened is that some people have this misconception saying that name is the self. No, name is not the self. If name is the self, then the name should not require anything else but the name for the self to emerge. In that case, I could say a name and something should pop magically, This is not the case. Mere imputation on the name means that the concept of the things that we have in our mind, with the sound that we impute upon that concept, and the different factor that comes out as the compounding factor, it could be the direct or it could be the cooperative factor. Everything coming together and generating something that we impute as an existing phenomena. Similarly, that dog, who is an aggressive dog, definitely, therefore we said emptiness is also, emptiness is also empty of intrinsic nature. Therefore, it is not something that is existing independent of cause, effect, or anything. It is dependently arising, meaning that even this is the ultimate truth. Understanding of this truth will depend on the person that is analyzing, meaning that those who are in the aspirant or lower ground, lower than the aspirant grounds, the understanding of emptiness or the understanding of the transcendental wisdom will not be as a direct observation. And someone who is not even a practitioner, for them, it is not possible for them to have this wisdom. If this wisdom was not intrinsically, if this wisdom was intrinsically existing, no one would have to even practice, or it would be known to everyone the moment it is existing. Meaning that if a vase is intrinsically existing, no one has to observe the vase to know that this is a vase. One, no, the vase will not depend on water to be filled with water. It will be eternally filled with water because that's the characteristic of a vase. So, and the shape will be, all the shape of the vase will be eternally the same. It will not have cracks or anything, because the vase is having cracks, because all the vases that are made are of different colors, different shape. All the vase, sometimes the vase is full, sometimes the vase is empty. Sometimes the vase is there, sometimes the vase is not there. It tells us that it depends on many different factors. And that is the very essence of the empty of intrinsic nature. Not the fact that even though all phenomena are empty of intrinsic nature, that all phenomena will be aware of the fact that everything is empty of intrinsic nature. In that case, there is no use of even introducing the emptiness, because it is already existing, non-dependent on anything. So everyone will know emptiness without even having to introduce. There won't be things such as introducing emptiness, teaching emptiness, analyzing emptiness, because it will be known to everyone, because it will exist intrinsically. So in that context, definitely the knowledge of the transcendent wisdom is also empty of intrinsic nature, meaning that even arising of this particular knowledge in someone depends on the vessel, depends on the terms, depends on the condition when such and such teaching has been given. So therefore, just because it is the nature of things doesn't mean that all phenomena will be aware of it. And then the thing that would be strange would be that even the tables and the rock and the water and the air, which are incapable of having intent, if we consider them to be those things without consciousness, the understanding of emptiness will not depend on the consciousness. It will also be there to the one's understanding will be there without dependent on consciousness, because there is no use of consciousness, because it is existing. So therefore, because it is said to be it is said to be the great knowledge, it is said to be empty of intrinsic nature, doesn't mean that it is something that is already understood by everyone. So therefore, it too, that means the very wisdom that tells us that everything is empty of intrinsic existence too is empty of intrinsic existence. And that is called the emptiness of emptiness. Okay, so I hope in some manner I have answered, but if you have some other follow-up questions, please ask. Yes, because if there is no conventional reality, what will be dependently arising at all? Then it goes towards, then the concept of emptiness goes towards nihilism. If it does not depend on the conventional reality, then it is no table, meaning no table. So, Lasse, so do we have follow-up question for that I could try to answer? So very good question. It's a wonderful question and very refreshing question, because it's a very deep analytical question. So very thank you for the question. And if this is not clear, please shoot me with those consecutive questions, follow-up questions. I will enjoy them thoroughly. But as I said, every answer that comes from me will be in the perspective of Prasangik Madhyamika. So any more questions? Do we have any more questions? Okay, so it seems. And so if there are more questions, especially if there is questions regarding this as a follow-up, or in the most profound way, if there is disagreement also, please ask it in the group or directly to me, and then we can have very wonderful debate. And I'll be very thankful for that too. So please, questions, those who have questions regarding today's lesson, ask them in the group. Now, before I read the final dedication, and then those who want to understand more on this particular question that was asked, I always recommend those books, especially if you want to read a commentary. I recommend Illuminating the Intent from chapter 6. Read everything from chapter 6 to the end of chapter 6. It will be very beneficial. And then other commentaries to the sixth treasure of Madhyamika would be also wonderful. And Madhyamika Avatara and the self-commentary. So those who are interested, please read those. And then if anyone wants recommendation, just write to me. I'll send you the recommendations. Okay, so before reading the dedication, let me just make a small announcement. So this is the last class of Dharma vocabulary, and I hope that this was beneficial to everyone, as it was very beneficial to me. Many concepts revised, many concepts refreshed, so very beneficial to me. And so now that we're done with this, we will be having a break for until I think it's around the yesterday's, according to yesterday's announcement, probably till the 3rd of the March. I think we have break till the 3rd of the March. After that, we're going to continue our course on Tibetan intermediate reading, in which we will introduce the text called the excellent teachings of the Sakya Pandita, the excellent eloquent speech of Sakya Pandita, which are verse that is like an advice for both worldly and dharmic practice by Sakya Pandita. Wonderful verse. Sakya Pandita Kunga again say we'll study from that verse, and then I will teach reading from that particular text, and then explain the text at the end, like each verse at the end. So this is something that we will be having, and we'll also and we'll also have so because we'll have the intermediate reading class, there will be also a second memorization. So those who want to register, I will also send the registration forms in the group, Telegram group, where you can go and then fill in the registration form in the Google Forms. It is called the Intermediate Tibetan Reading Class, but with that, the memorization would be of the verses of the excellent speech of Sakya Pandita, eloquent speech of Sakya Pandita. Not the entire text, it's very long. But let's see, the first chapter, it has only, I think, around 18 to 21 verse in that particular chapter. We try to finish 4 or 5 or 6, depending how we do. So those who are interested, the registration form will be provided, and then I will send an announcement also. So the schedule for the 2023 grammar course has already been sent in the grammar group. The schedule for the 2023 side course, such as the Dharma vocabulary, we have Dharma vocabulary, we have the reading class, we have the conversation class, which is the longest one, which normally goes for 2.5 months. So we'll have that also. This time it will be intermediate conversation class. And then in between, we will have like classes on history. Those who are interested may join. It will be like one or three classes, consecutive class on history, like a portion of history. For example, we could have a history class on the era before the demolition of the Dharma from Tibet by the king. So therefore, we can have it in that manner. Okay, so I will send the schedule in the group, and please check accordingly. And yes, till the 3rd of March, everyone will have holiday. Those who are willing to send me the recordings of the Heart Sutra in Tibetan, please send it to me directly. And those who want to share recording in their own desired language may do so. And those who and in between, if someone has questions, you can directly ask me. It's a holiday from the class. Doesn't mean that I won't be active to answer your questions. I will be active to answer your questions regarding the course. And those who have any inquiry may send emails to me and I will answer it accordingly. Okay, so this is the announcement. Now let me read the final verse, which is the verse of dedication to Mother Pragyaparamita, and also the summary of the one verse Pragyaparamita Sutra. So very wonderful. And the English translation will be provided with the PDF that I'm going to send, that will be sent in the group. So the verse is, Masam Chumishara Paruchi Maki Mikanam Kyumoni, Susorari Shichuwa to Sumkayum Chatselo. So the transcendent wisdom that is beyond any conventional understanding of the words, conceptuality, which cannot be stated in the conventional words, which is non-arising, non-ceasing. When we say non-arising, non-ceasing, it is intrinsic arising and intrinsic ceasing, because even this transcendent wisdom is empty of intrinsic nature, and which is of the nature of the non-compound space, because non-compound space is also a non-affirming negation. This is also a non-affirming negation. So which is the object of one's self-analyzing mind. And so I prostrate to the mother of all the Buddhas, of Tathagatas of the 3 times. And then finally, Tayatha Om Kate Kate Parakate Parasamkate Bodhiya Swaha. Most wonderfully. So thank you very much for joining in, for the last class of the last session for the Heruka Institute Dharma Vocabulary course of the year 2023. We will have the same course in the future for different text. This is not the only Dharma Vocabulary course that we'll have, but it will come in a cycle. Like I said, we'll have the Dharma, we have the reading class, we'll have the conversation class, we'll have 1-2 history class, we'll have some other interesting class in between, and then we will go back to Dharma Vocabulary class. So it will be in a cycle. So those other texts like we had, like the name Manjushri name and these 8-4 mind training and 37 practices of the Bodhisattva, or any other interesting text which are not very long, we will introduce in this course and with the vocabulary. So I hope everyone will benefit from it. So thank you very much for joining in. Those of you who are joining me for the grammar class, I will see you on Friday. I think it's on Friday. I'll see you on Friday. I think Friday will be the last class. So I'll see you on Friday. Thank you very much for joining in, Tashitele, and I hope everyone to have a wonderful evening, day, or afternoon, wherever you are. So thank you.